separately, and they realized, like, scratch the board. This is not a tattoo show. This is something totally else, different, because they grabbed my artist backstory, my best friend's backstory, and then my backstory, and they were just like, wow, this is Cartel crew,
Right.
actually.
Right.
So at first, my first reaction was like, no way, my family would kill me.
All right, and welcome to another show of the BCP podcast. I'm your host, Preston Jackson. As we keep just interviewing interesting people, another one just fell into my lap, and this is going to be a really exciting one and a whole nother industry outside the sports that we usually we tap into, but this one's good. All right, my guest today is a mother, a world-renowned tattoo artist. I've got plenty of tattoos. I'm a tattoo fiend. So world-renowned tattoo artist, reality TV personality who has guests on Ink Master, Black Ink Crew, and Cartel Crew, and also a business owner. Welcome to the show, Mrs. Catherine Tattoo Chickalow.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, yes. And of course, if you know the name Chickalow, this is the newly wife of our very own Anthony Chickalow. So she is welcome to the family. I've known Anthony since he was about 16 years old, his high school days. And we'll jump into Ant later on. He told me an interesting story and how you guys met. I'm going to see if your story matches up to his. But let's just kind of jump into it. So take me back to young Catherine. Where you grew up, how childhood was, and then we'll kind of go down that timeline.
So I was born in New York, but I came to Miami since I was 6 years old.
Okay, what part of Miami?
Kendall, West Kendall.
Stop it.
Mm-hmm.
My folks from down south in Kendall.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we're from down in the Palmetto Kendall area, south of Coral Gables. So that's awesome. I've never heard anybody say that before. Okay.
That's where I grew up.
There we go.
Ever since I was really young. And so I grew up in Kendall, small little Kendall with big girl with big dreams.
Okay.
And ever since I was young, that I could remember, I've been drawing. From being a baby, drawing on walls, getting in trouble, to being 8 years old and having like folders this thick of just drawings and sketches of so many different things, from fashion design to architecture to everything, right? Portraits. So I've always been very creative and very artistic. And I always knew that there was something that I wanted to do with that when I grew up. I didn't know quite yet till later on.
Okay. So now you start developing, or you had this passion for drawing and sketching, and then how does this kind of maneuver into tattooing? When did you get introduced to the tattoo world?
So I like to say that I have two talents. One is being a creative, and I think that's where the art comes from, because it's not just painting, it's anything that's with a creative mind, right? And I'm also always been very like business driven. So everything started, ever since I was very young, from selling little McDonald toys in third grade to bracelets, turned into, I braided hair when I was in middle school, right?
Okay.
And I used to do hair, and I did so well with my little business that my mom made a little area for me in the garage, and it had its own little private entrance. So I took advantage, and I like decorated it with like all my art and all my pictures. And one day I'm doing a client's hair, and we're having a conversation, and he sees my artwork and he says, man, if you draw this good, you could tattoo. And it kind of like clicked to me. I'm like, well, what do you need to, like, I used to think that to become a tattoo artist, you needed to do like some, crazy schooling or something. So I don't know. It never occurred to me until that moment, like, hey, maybe this is something I could try.
Okay.
So the client was in jail, and he had just gotten out, and he helped me make a jailhouse tattoo machine.
For those who don't know what a jailhouse tattoo machine is, explain.
So a homemade jailhouse tattoo machine consists of a car motor, a lead pencil, a button, use a sewing needle. It's
Mm-hmm.
like it's a whole invention within itself. Mind you, I know some people are judgmental. Mind you,
Okay.
when I first started, there was no like tattoo reality shows. There was no education on tattoos. There was no tattoo cover-ups. It was still something very, not so like in the mainstream as it is now. And yeah, it's something that I was like, if I like to draw, why not try this other medium? And I took it as a hobby.
Okay.
So what started as like a little kind of, had one side hustle became into another side hustle. Like I said, there was no tattoo TV shows or education on tattoos that much back then. So like all my friends in high school, they were like, yeah, I just want like, just do a little letter, just do a little this. And it was like just little things that I would do as a hobby.
Okay.
So my mom, she always instilled in me, like whatever you decide to do for the rest of your life, strive to be great at it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just don't just do it to do it, like reach for the stars.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I had to pick something. But tattooing was just a hobby. I was young, you know. I didn't know what I could make of it or
Okay.
of that career.
Okay.
So my dream really started. I wanted to work for Disney, for Pixar. I went to school for computer animation.
Okay.
I wanted to create Disney characters. I've always liked um, cartoons and animation. I fell in love with like the movie Toy Story and just how everything came to life.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
as I was going to school for computer animation, I felt a little bit lost. I had stopped tattooing for like 2 years, and I was like, okay, I really have to be serious in what I want to do because I'm going to this school, but I'm not feeling connected to it like I thought I would.
Okay.
And one thing that I love about tattooing and why I kind of like, so I quit school and I said, I'm just gonna, you know what? I'm gonna choose tattooing, but I want to be like world known for this. Like I want to be one of like the greatest.
Okay.
Um, what made me choose tattooing is the challenge. So in any art medium, there's an erase button. You can paint over it. You can, if you're drawing on paper, you just crumble up the paper, start on a new paper.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do a tattoo on someone, you have one chance to do it correct.
Right.
And that challenge I just loved chasing, trying to perfect that skill to do something amazing that would last on clients forever.
Okay. That's and it's interesting hearing it from an artist's standpoint and the drive and the passion and the commitment to it because um the art medium that you saying you speak of, I've never ever thought of it that way. Obviously, the obvious is tattooing is forever, right? When you get something, and I tell kids all the time, listen, if you don't really necessarily know what you want to get on your body, just don't get it yet. Just chill for a second and know what you want to get because more than likely that's going to be forever. And when you get old, it's going to
Yeah,
be there also. So how you feeling when you're young at 16, 17 years old? It might not be that acceptable when you become 50 and 60 years old. So just chill
true.
for a second. All right. So now let's just keep on this timeline. You have this passion, you have this art. It was a hobby. When,
Hmm.
when, and what were the steps did you take to actually making this a business? How did you get started into becoming a paid professional in this craft?
Okay, so when I was 19 years old, I quit going to school for computer animation, and
Mm-hmm.
I had this just crazy idea, and it's crazy that I can talk about it now because I accomplished so much.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
my
yeah.
mindset back then was like, I have all these dreams, but I really didn't know how I was going to accomplish them. I
Okay.
just knew that I had a goal and I was going to work hard and figure it out along the way.
Okay.
My goal was I didn't want to just tattoo. I wanted to be exceptional at it. I wanted to be great at it and respected for it. but I was so far behind as far as talent, especially like now with social media, like what I see these artists come up with at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
I I was artistic and I had some talent, but I needed to work extra hard to get to the level I wanted to be.
Okay.
And I was very far behind. So my game plan was two things. I did a lot of research like on marketing and businesses and everything, and I realized a lot of businesses hire models and pay for these commercials and all of that to help out their brand.
Mm-hmm.
So that my idea started, okay, I know I want to do this, but I also thought of the idea, what if I'm the face of my own brand?
Okay.
So my image to me since I was young was important as far as let me take care of myself. Let me go to the gym, let me work out so I can do photo shoots and model, and maybe that'll help me come out on more publications and show the people my work.
Did it work?
So that was idea number one. Yes, I
Okay.
did because I also modeled and I did different things. I tried different TV medias and working with many different people, and I learned a lot. And in anything that you do a lot about, it's networking. And I
Correct.
met a lot of people, and one thing always led to another.
Okay.
And then the second part was I didn't just want to be a cute face. That was what was super important. More important than the advertisement was I want to be really talented at this, and I want to be very respected for what I do. And
Okay.
when you're young and you're a Latina and you go to shops and you go to conventions, because I'll never forget, I took my portfolio, my art portfolio, and I walked South Beach and I went into every shop, and they didn't really even give me the time of day. And I understand why they did it. I was young. I didn't look like I was serious, um, even though I was. So respect was very important for me.
Okay.
I didn't want to just be known like for what I look like or take the easy route. So that I knew that that was going to come with a lot of practice and a lot of hours to keep up.
So with those two implementations, the marketing, which you're using yourself as the face of your own brand, and then all the research that you were doing, what was the best piece of advice on that journey that you received from somebody?
So on my journey, I wouldn't recall specifically one person saying this, but I also like to read. And you heard the quote that says that like hard work will beat talent if talent isn't applied.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I knew that I had to just work extra harder. That's where the idea came from. I remember I read that quote somewhere and I understood that what it was going to take for me was a lot of practice and a lot of hours and being very serious about my craft.
So when did you finally get your shot? When did somebody actually bring you into their shop or rent you a chair? What happened?
So between perfecting my tattoo skills,
Mm-hmm.
getting better at that, and also doing like TV appearances, magazines, and all in that in hand,
Okay.
I started building a little bit of a brand for myself. I was already booked for a year. I was doing pretty well. I was young, but I knew I still wasn't where I wanted to be. And then I got the opportunity to go on a TV show called Ink Master,
Okay.
which at the time when I went on the show, it was just their second season. So it was something very new.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand or grasp the full concept of it. I just knew this was a great opportunity and I felt very blessed. And I was like, I'm just going to go on all in because either I'm going to win or if I lose, I'm going to still win because I'm going to learn.
Right. Love it. Love it. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
So
go ahead. Go ahead.
So yeah, I got picked up by the show. I can't recall so much. I know that they reached out to me. Like I said, I was a little bit established at that time. Um, and after doing a few like interviews and stuff, I got picked up for the second season of Ink Master.
All right, and we're gonna jump into Ink Master, but I want to slightly go back, and maybe I missed it. When you started to really kind of build your brand, were you working tattooing out of your own home? were you in somebody's shop? Like when you started building a clientele, where were you?
In what I do in the tattoo industry,
Mm-hmm.
it's very important to get a tattoo apprenticeship.
Okay, there you
But
go.
because I was young and like I told you, I did go to a few shops and they didn't give me a shot, I kind of like I kind of went all in with the idea that I was going to be this great tattoo artist. So like
Okay.
if one person told me no, that didn't mean that I was going to quit. Like I
Yeah.
was going to make it happen.
Yeah.
So my option at that time was to practice at home.
Okay.
And I had a lot of friends that, let me tattoo them and practice. And I took it in baby steps until I got to a certain point that I was like, okay, I really need to at least show what I have so far and keep, showing it to different shops.
And
So yeah,
and
when I was
and
19
yeah, yeah.
and I
Go ahead.
had a little, and I had just a little bit of a tattoo portfolio built, I
Mm-hmm.
went to a reputable shop in West Kendall. It was called Chico's Mark for Life at the time.
Okay.
And I got hired and I worked with them for 6 years.
Nice. Okay. Now we popping.
Yeah.
Take me in your first stage. Take me in that first stage. You're like 19 and your portfolio's growing a bit. If you can think back in that portfolio, where did you have like a showcase piece? Like what was the first page in that portfolio? What was it?
I knew that I loved realism,
Okay.
but I also like animation. So I think also, and from an artistic standpoint, I always give that advice, try to like stick to one niche. You'll like
Okay.
stand out more than
Okay.
trying to do different things. So I
Right.
was kind of like in a balance at that time. I'm like, do I want to stick to my animation or do I want to stick to my realism? So I was focusing a lot of my portfolio was on that. I was taking clients and doing like a lot of different styles of tattoos, but I was trying to stick in my portfolio was what I wanted to do. So I would offer free tattoos
Mm-hmm.
of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to showcase
Nice. I like it.
in my portfolio.
And then
And
you
it was
can
it was crazy hours. Sometimes when people ask me, "What's the longest tattoo you've done?" The longest tattoo I started at 12 in the afternoon and didn't finish till 4 o'clock in the morning.
That's ridiculous. What was it? What was the piece?
That one was actually was a portrait of Dwayne Wade that I
Oh,
did.
okay. All right. Can I
Yeah.
ask, since we're on Dwayne Wade, you bring up celebrities. Can I ask, do you have a list of celebrities that you've tattooed?
Yes, I I've tattooed quite a few. Sometimes I forget a few names, but
Okay.
yeah, I've tattooed Dwayne Wade, Lil Wayne, Rick Ross, Tiny, which is T.I.'s wife. I've tattooed Carol G, Anuel,
That
Luis Fonsi,
that's a solid start.
and a lot of athletes I've tattooed. So yeah.
All right. So in the branding, when did the name Tatu Baby pop? Who gave it to you? Did you get it yourself? How did we get the name Tattoo with the spelling and the baby?
So that's a crazy story in
Let's
itself.
go. Let's go. We got the
I
time.
mean, it's not a long story. So when I started working for the first like reputable tattoo shop,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's when tattoo TV shows were out, and
Okay.
there was a girl on TV called a lot of know her, Kat Von D, right?
Okay.
So Kat Von D, she became like world famous. She's an amazing, talented tattoo artist. But when my clients would show people, hey, Kat did this tattoo, my name would get confused a lot with her name.
Oh.
And I knew that I wanted to do something, especially like that's when like social media started growing. I think that was like in MySpace days, right?
Okay.
So I needed something that was my own brand, or like a easy way for people to find me that they would remember. And there was already a tattoo artist that was well known named Kat.
Okay.
So with the old shop owner, we started going back and forth with some names, and he would say like Bubbles, Cupcake. And I'm like, I'm not a stripper.
Yeah. That don't
I
sound good at
don't
all.
yeah, no, I didn't. So because I was the youngest at the shop, and I've always been like the youngest in my friends group back then, I was like, how about baby tattoo? And then I was like, how about tattoo baby? It sounded like it had a little bit of a Spanish feel to it.
Yeah,
And
I dig it.
it kind of just clicked. And I feel like out of all my business ideas, that was definitely the best one because it's a name that like you always remember, right?
When I was talking to Chick, I was like, Chick, like, what's her name? And he was telling me a name, but she goes by Tatu Baby. So when he and I talk about you,
Uh,
he even refers to you as Tatu Baby.
yeah, whenever I'm doing anything. So yeah, it started just like that, like for, business
Mm-hmm.
and social media platform. Um, Everybody still always has called me Kat, but whenever you refer to like my go check out my work, they knew that my
Yeah,
socials were named Tattoo Baby.
right.
Then it wasn't when I was on the show Ink Master, and they were like going through some names and I was like, well, they asked me, do you have a nickname? I'm like, well, on my socials I use Tattoo Baby. They loved it.
Loved
They
it.
were like, that's it. That's what we're gonna stay calling you. So it
So
grew from there.
stay there with Ink Masters. Second season you placed third. You placed
Third.
third.
No. Second season I placed in fourth, and then I went back for season three, and
Yep.
I placed in third place.
All
Yeah.
right. So let's go back to the casting call. I assume you had to apply for the show.
hmm
Um, and then like how was the filtering process? How did you know, okay, I might actually end up on this show? How did that go?
I mean, I'm gonna be honest, that one went pretty smooth. And I
Okay.
think that's like one thing that I learned now. I'm like when something's meant to be, it goes smoothly, and when something's not meant to be, there's always just like these like hills and stuff, you have to overcome if you really want to do it. But yeah, that was actually a pretty smooth process for me. I talked with them and I kind of just, you know, let it be and see what happened. And I got called to go. I was pretty excited.
Yeah.
It was a, it was it was a really cool opportunity, but I didn't really know like a lot of what I was getting myself into at the time.
Good segue. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, I was young and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go on this reality TV show, but I'm an adult. I live by myself. I'm grown. I can do whatever I want.
Mm-hmm.
And then you arrive to the TV show, and it's a totally different situation. You are co-living. There were 16 contestants on the show,
Okay.
and you co-live in this space, and in the same building was where we would tattoo.
Okay.
So we were only really able to leave the building when we had to go do these certain challenges. So if it was like, or if I want to go buy something from the store, I could not just leave and buy that from the store.
So
You
what did
know,
you have to do?
I mean, they have PAs, which is production assistants,
Okay.
and they do all of that and they help us out. But it was just like a whole new world of filming and everything. And there was a lot of things in the back end that did make it very hard.
Mm-hmm.
Second season, we couldn't have our phones. So that taught me, and whenever I talk about the show, I tell people like I didn't just grow so much artistically, I grew so much as a person.
Okay.
Um, you are taken out of your comfort of your home and you're put on in this completely different environment, and it's like it was definitely the hardest thing I've ever done.
I
Even
can believe
from
it.
even when I gave birth, you know how, first you don't sleep with the baby is a newborn. I was like, this is like easy peasy compared to what I did on the show because it was hard.
Okay.
Um, when they took your phone away, the the one thing that I learned is like, wow, having the support of your friends and family is so huge. And it's
Mm.
something that I underestimated before. Like you're
Mm.
having a bad day and you get to go home to your spouse, or, you get to, call your mom or call your friend and like, have someone to, vent to, make you maybe help you see things in a different perspective, or calm you down, or just support you and tell you, hey, you're going to get through this. When you can't have that phone call and you are doing something that's so challenging, it's so hard. It takes a very big emotional toll on you.
So who did you have to well, then that's not even the question. I suppose you had to lean on the other contestants, right? But how do you lean on the other contestants for emotional support when you're still competing against the other contestants?
I would say you can't really lean on anybody because
Okay.
you have, at the end of the day, you have contestants, but these people, they're strangers. You're just getting to know each other,
Mm-hmm.
and you're kind of like thrown into like a pit, like as pit bulls, because you have the production is, you know, making sure that they're, they have like their content and they're creating drama. So it's on a regular case, I will never go to my shop and go and critique one of my artists and say, "Oh, you did the worst tattoo today," like, because look at
Right.
those lines and stuff. But you know what you signed up for, and at the end of the day, this is a business, and they have a production team, and they're
Right.
asking you questions. Hey, Tattoo Baby, who did the worst tattoo? And you have to answer,
You have to
your
answer.
opinion. Okay, my favorite tattoo of the day was this one. The least favorite was that one.
Right.
And it doesn't feel good when you're the one on the hot seat, when you're sitting there and you're already stressed because you're trying to perform the best that you can, and you're tired and you're hungry, and then now you're in the hot seat and people are critiquing you.
Right.
It's
Right.
yeah, it's one of those things like that made me very emotionally tough going out there.
It I can only imagine. And as I watched a portion of one of the seasons, I believe it may have been when you were invited back for season 3, possibly. You have to correct me if I'm wrong. There was a tattoo that you did that I guess one of the fingers was, they said it was, the finger was out of place. It was like a hand, and maybe the finger was kind of abnormal, whatnot. And I was watching your body language as the judges were critiquing you, and then watching your counterparts also their body language as they're listening to the judges critique you. And the way, at whatever age you were, like you said, you were young, but the way you handled that criticism on TV was kind of like you had your big girl pants on. Like you're like, okay, I can see where you're coming from. I think your response was like, I see it now also, right? As you're
Uh-huh.
telling me, I see it now also. Instead of crawling into a hole, bundling up, feeling sorry for yourself, you're like, you know what? Screw it. I see it. I'll make sure that doesn't happen again. Ultimately,
Absolutely.
ultimately, you ended up winning that challenge. You ended up winning that challenge. So with all these different, I think my last question about Ink Masters was, what was the most difficult task as far as the competition? Like, you have to do this type of tattoo, you have to go to this location and do this type of tattoo. Which one was that stands like, yo, that was hard?
Okay, so the hardest part for Ink Master for me was time. It
Okay.
wasn't just the time to do the tattoo, it's the time to do everything that we had to do on the show. And here, when I go to my shop and I'm working on my own time frame and my own space, my work, there's a huge difference on my performance
Mm-hmm.
compared to now I'm on this TV show. I filmed all day, all this other stuff. I want to rest, but now I got to meet my client, my canvas actually,
Okay.
and I have to create the best design I could possibly do. And here, I'm well rested. I'll catch certain things, but after like 2 weeks and you're just so overwhelmed and exhausted from so much going on, you start missing little things like the
Mm.
finger and this or the feet. And now when I do watch the show, I totally understand when certain people make certain mistakes. It's like, the show comes out once a week, but we were filming every day,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah.
So, and not only the tattoo shows, like whenever I see any competition show, I see it in a whole different perspective
Yep.
because I know that it's so challenging.
It's kind of like, and I'm sure you've heard it, it's kind of like when you watch, when I play ball, so I play football. So when I don't watch a football game in the same light as a normal fan would. I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at the game through a different lens, and I'm predicting what can happen. I'm taking in information, I'm processing information to see what could happen, because I've done that for 20 plus years of my life. The way I've done it at a high level. So it comes out differently. So it's hard for me to go to a bar and listen to folks scream and yell at TV. I'm like, yo, that's not how that works. It
Yeah,
doesn't.
yeah.
That's not how it happens. That's not necessarily what's going on. But that, I hear exactly what you were saying, and that the way you watch reality TV shows, you kind of know the behind the scenes stuff.
I mean, I feel what you say because I didn't know, barely anything about football before or UFC. And
Mm-hmm.
now with Anthony, he has taught me so much. Like I see things in sports as well in a
Yep.
different perspective. And I still
Absolutely.
don't know everything that he knows. So yeah,
What
yeah.
about Black Ink Crew? Which Black Ink Crew did you guest appear on?
I did I appeared on Black Ink Crew, the New York
The New York. So you were
show.
there with Caesar.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
And which shop?
yeah.
Because that was one I did watch. Which shop did you pop in on?
No, I think it was that they were in town, and I
Okay.
think he wanted to get a tattoo or something.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I have like the memory of a fish,
You're fine. You're fine.
so I have so much that happens. From what I remember, Black Ink Crew, I did an appearance because they were in town, so they were in Miami, and I did a
Oh.
tattoo on
Okay.
Caesar.
Okay.
And then I did another appearance where they were in Puerto Rico and I got invited to the tattoo convention that they were going to.
Neat.
So that show was a learning experience as well because I did uh, uh I did Ink Master, which was very competition based, and
Mm-hmm.
then Black Ink is more reality based. And I saw how like sometimes things can get twisted on TV shows and, people just run with it. I appeared on, I did a guest appearance of Black Ink and I was excited. I wanted to go to the convention with them. And then when the
Mm-hmm.
show came out, like they made it seem like I went to visit for other reasons and
Mm-hmm.
it was confusing, but I'm like, you know what, just, that's one that was I think that was the first lesson of reality TV show where I learned I'm like you have to let just people think what they think.
Okay. Good point. So
Hmm.
going back to the production part, so you're saying that the editing, the editing can make a storyline. They can turn a whole storyline around by how
Oh,
they edit.
1000%.
1000%.
1000%.
Mm.
1000%. Reality TV show, this is how I explain it. Reality drama TV show is like imagine I write you a 10-page letter.
Okay.
And then you grab that 10-page letter and you grab words from that 10-page letter and create a whole other story that could be only 2 pages. But you
Mm.
can grab those words and piece it together to make it seem something different.
Mm. And you have obviously, I don't know. I keep saying obviously. It's not obvious because I have no idea how it happens. But I would assume you don't see the show until we see the show, right?
We don't see the editing until everybody sees it. So when the episode comes out, we're watching it for the first time.
Have you ever had to explain yourself to a friend, family, significant other, like something came out on TV, they edited in a certain light, and now you're getting looked at like, girl, what the hell? And you're like, that ain't how it happened.
Yeah, I think when I did the Black Ink Crew, I think I said a video where I was like that's not how it went down or what I went to do there. And I think other instances as well. That's a battle because like I said, you have to, just let people think what they think, but
Right.
at the same time, I'm also an advocate of like you have to speak up for yourself,
Okay.
you know? So it's finding like a balance with that. So sometimes I have, and other times I haven't. Sometimes I
Okay.
let it ride.
Okay. So now we go into Cartel Crew, which you had an extended um, primary role, or I don't know what to call it. What do you guys call it? I don't know. You were a lead in Cartel Crew. And you and I spoke off camera and how you came about being on Cartel, or how the show Cartel Crew came about. Can you just explain for the viewers, like, how did that show come about? What were you actually going to cast for? And then they were like, yo, we're going to do this instead.
So Cartel was interesting. Cartel Crew was interesting because when I appeared on Black Ink Crew, I connected with the production team, and I was in the talks with them on doing a tattoo reality show at the Miami shop.
Mm-hmm.
So they came and they shot a pilot at Tilde and Tattoos in Miami. But when they were doing the pilot, I had my best friend Stephanie. She was going to be part of the tattoo show. She was going to be, like my best friend. She helped me bring the celebrity clientele and everything. And then I had my artist.
Mm-hmm.
They interview all of us, separately, and they realize, like, scratch the board. This is not a tattoo show. This is something totally else, different, because they grabbed my artist backstory, my best friend's backstory, and then my backstory, and they were just like, "Wow, this is Cartel Crew,
Right.
actually."
Right.
So at first, my first reaction was like, "No way, my family would kill me." Like, my family is not gonna roll with this. Like,
Uh-huh.
this is something that you just don't. The reason why I opened up to production about my past started because I explained to them I've been blessed with two fathers. I have my biological father that was murdered when I was 4 years old, and I have an amazing stepfather that also raised me. That I call him my dad, my father.
Mm-hmm.
So when they asked me how my dad had passed away, it kind of like, it's very hard to not be honest, and there's publications and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
my initial reaction was like, no way. Like, my mom will be so upset with me. This is something that she buried. She never wants to talk about. Like, she
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I also like to believe that I like to share my story to motivate other people, because I think that I became who I am because of motivation from the people around me, and that I was being, that, how successful I became.
Mm-hmm.
So in part of me, I have like, this is something my family doesn't like to talk about, but in other parts, this is the part of my life and my story that made me who I am. When when I was born, my father, he did really well for himself, and my mom had me when she was 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So we went from having houses and cars and all these things, and I remember being a baby, and I remember flashes of things, and then it turns into, I lose my father. I'm going to funerals every week for different family members. I'm going into, we keep moving apartments. Every apartment we go to gets broken into and our stuff gets stolen. And one instance, I was in the apartment while somebody was trying to break in.
Mm.
And then I see we lose everything. And then we come to Miami and we don't talk to anybody. So
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of confusing times for me, but within that, I saw my biggest motivation, which is my mom. I
Right.
saw my mom have everything and start from zero. Like, how do you go? You have your houses, to now we're living in apartments, to now we're living in a motel in Miami. And I'm asking her, like, why is there mirrors on the roof?
Right.
Um, but I saw my mom rebuild herself. She never liked that lifestyle. When my dad passed away, it was a time for her to turn a blank new page. The reason we didn't talk to like a lot of family and stuff was because she said, I don't want nothing to do with anything of that world, and anybody in part of my life and my daughter's life it's going to start from ground zero,
Okay.
and be
Okay.
legit.
Okay.
So I saw my mom literally with a target on her back, lose everything, start from zero while raising me, go to work, go to school, and do everything, and always instill in me, like, she would get like a hard time because people would judge her, Colombians in the 80s, and would say, oh, Colombians only do this, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to show, like, I don't want all my mom's hard work to go in vain. I want to show her that everything that she did for me and for her family was for the better good. And I want to be successful and show her that my success is because of her. So,
And
yeah, I think that's what was like really changed my mind into doing Cartel Crew and trying to like speak about that side. Um, and show that Colombians, we are so much more than drugs and whatever stigma they thought of back in the 1980s.
and I take notes during all my episodes, and the first thing I wrote down was very driven, right? And now the answer is very evident. is that you've taken on what seems like 90% of your mother's characteristics, because you talk about how she's gone from having everything to not moaning and groaning about having nothing, but instead, all right, I'm going to pick the pieces up and put them all back together to have value within the life that I'm living. And it kind of reflects on how you talk and where you want to be. It says, okay, well, there it is. It's just like a light bulb went off. That's where she gets her drive from. Is at a young
Mhm.
age, she saw her mom do it. Would I be correct
Oh
in
yeah.
saying? Why? Yep.
Our kids, they see everything that we do. They're like sponges. I was a little sponge and I saw, and now I hear, even like when, and now, I was a single mom before I met Anthony, and I would hear single moms, oh, it's so hard, being a single parent. And I would just think, oh, like, man, like my mom didn't, she just didn't only just do it by herself. She did it. She had so many obstacles against her.
Right.
And she never complained. She's a very happy person. She just, did what she had to do and worked hard. And that's when I'm like, when I feel beat and when I feel defeated and when like I want to like go home early or stop working early, I don't make excuses. I'm like, my mom didn't make no excuses. She made it happen. This is what I want to create for myself, so I'm gonna make it happen.
Well, speaking of successes and failures, you've had at least one success in having your own tattoo shop, correct?
Yes.
All right. Talk to me
So
about, yep, go ahead. You got it.
after when I was an Ink Master, I had a private studio, and after Ink Master, we opened up a bigger studio with a partner. The partner ended up moving out of town, so Till the End Tattoos was created. I've had it for about 9 years now, but now that I'm in Tampa and I just got
Hey,
married, the
hey,
plan is I have in the works opening a second location here in Tampa that's under
absolutely.
construction currently.
Absolutely. And we'll shout that out. And when you open it, hopefully we can be part of the grand opening. That'd be
Yes.
fantastic. That'd be cool as hell. So that's the second shop. Now, let's get into some fun stuff. My man Chick, and we had him on for our last interview, and so he tells me about this awesome new wife that he has, and she's a celebrity, and this, that, and I'm sorry, Chick, just stop the bull crap. Like, how did you meet her? What was the story? How did you introduce yourself to her, and tell me how it took off? All right, so I'm going to ask you the same question. How did you meet a Mr. Anthony Chickalow?
I think my version is a little bit funny. So, um, Anthony is very extroverted.
Mm,
He has so many friends. He's the light that walks into parties, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I'm an extrovert. So,
mm-hmm.
all my life, like, I don't meet strangers, you
Okay,
know. I've had strangers and like I freak out and I just like walk away, right?
okay,
But because of my business, I have to like network a little bit more. So there was an event. It was actually for Cartel crew.
okay,
Was this big party, and yeah, I met Anthony at one of these events.
okay,
And I remember like he talked to me, and I wasn't shy. So I usually am, and I'm usually like reserved and just like I said, like walk away. But I remember like we had. It wasn't nothing crazy. It was just an introduction, but
mm-hmm.
for me it's crazy because I don't just meet people like that,
All right.
or men. So it definitely made an impact. But we went our separate ways. It was just, it was just something, it wasn't, just how you meet people like out or whatever. And then years later, went down in the DM, get a little message. I get
what do you
a
say? What do you say? What who jumped in whose DM?
Anthony jumped in my DM.
Okay, what
He's
do you
like, "Hey,
say?
how you doing?" He's like, "How you doing?" And at first thought it was just a tattoo and stuff.
Right.
And I was like, "How may I help you?" But I do always try to be very professional, especially like in my socials and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've said from the beginning, it's always been important for me to be respected for what I do. So
Right.
I've always been very professional. And then it was like, you don't remember me. So I go into his page and I'm like, this is the guy that I met at that
Oh,
party.
oh, look at you. You're smiling right
Yeah.
now.
Oh yeah, he has that effect on me.
Okay.
And we just started talking, and it was so smooth. And it goes to like when I say sometimes when something's just so meant to be, like things like start to align, and we just started talking, and we've been inseparable ever since.
How maybe you still do, but how did you and how do you navigate being a female artist in a male driven industry that's attractive? How do you fight off the guys who are probably approaching you for another reason other than tattooing?
Well, first of all, to get a tattoo with me, it's a process. I
Okay.
have an assistant, which is my mom, by the way, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a questionnaire, and we have to leave deposits, so it all has to be, it's all pretty like you have to be serious enough to book with me.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, when a client comes to the shop, I'm very professional and I'm very serious.
Mm-hmm.
I take what I do serious. I take myself serious. So I've never had an inappropriate situation.
So you have a filter system already. It's already
Yeah.
established. That's good.
Yeah. I've never, ever had a situation.
That's fantastic. Let's go back quickly, and I'm about to finish up. But in the Cartel crew, it portrays that you're the way that you grew up is almost completely different of what you're trying to establish now for your son. You're now
Hmm.
you're now married. You come into a situation where your son is now being raised by a young man in Anthony Chickalow who has embraced him as his own. Your upbringing, you lost your father, you were raised by a single mother, and then your son at the time was your son's father at the time had his instances where he was in and out of jail for whatever reasons, right? So it was
Hmm.
kind of a fluid situation. But now you're in a situation, you're establishing something stable for your son. Does that
Yes.
does that give you a sense of pride, a joy on the inside? You're like, yo, I'm taking the right steps. How does that internally? What does that do for you?
Being a mother is a huge responsibility. The
Mm-hmm.
moment my son was born, it's like I'm no longer living life for myself. It's first I live for my son.
Mm-hmm.
Because I made the decision to bring him to this world, and he deserves me to give him everything that, sorry,
Okay.
oh
Okay.
yeah, he deserves to give him, for me to try hard and give him the best of me.
Yep.
Um, I had a very interesting, tough childhood, and I don't want that for my son. I hear, I have friends that have had different childhoods, and for example, like Anthony, I admire Anthony and his family so much.
Mm-hmm.
He grew up with his mom and his dad, and you know, and involved in sports, and he did really good in school, and then he went to like college. So I always joke with him because the only thing that I really wish I would have experienced is I wish I would have gone to, because I went to kind of like an art college that was kind of like small. I wish I would have the college experience,
Okay.
the staying in the dorms. Like I always think it's like so cool, like
Mm-hmm.
everything that he's experienced. And I'm like, I would love for my son to get to experience that in his life, enjoy his childhood, go to college, do the frat parties,
Right.
go
Right.
to the games. Um, so yeah, I think as parents, you want your kids to have better than you had.
Well, you're doing a good job. And I got two more questions. And I'll let you go. They're two good
No
ones.
problem.
Looking back at the younger you,
Hmm.
what advice would you give yourself?
Looking back at the younger me, I would give the advice that I give to young girls now, which is like focus at a young age and don't get caught up in the BS that's around you and the BS of people that are around you. A lot of I did have a lot of friends and people that when I was younger weren't, in the best track. And unfortunately, as driven as you can be, who you have around you will affect you.
Mm.
So I always tell like my young nieces or cousins or friends, I'm like, if you're young, and if you get into a relationship or you have best friends, just stay focused on what you want to do so you can get there faster, you know?
Fantastic. And lastly, beyond the fame and recognition, what is the most personally rewarding aspect of being Tatu Baby?
The most rewarding aspect of being Tattoo Baby is for me has been the impact my art has had on people in their toughest times.
Nice.
That's something that I didn't factor in when I first started
Mm-hmm.
doing this, but through the years I've worked with so many different clients, and there have been moments where I work with clients that are going through the toughest time of their life, and I can bring something to them through my art that can give them a little comfort or escape.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been the most rewarding part of being Tattoo Baby, of doing what I do.
I have these list of questions I usually have lined up for guests. And as this conversation moved along, and I was excited to get to that most recent question I asked you because I was like, she's going to give me a really good answer for this last one because the conversation has kind of led us in that direction. And it was a good one. Like if you were running for
Yeah.
like Miss America or something, that would have won the competition. I knew you were going to give a good one, but I didn't think it was going to be that good. That was a good answer. That was fantastic. So let's end it with this. I want you to shout out your socials, any projects that you're working on, where folks can follow your work, and kind of what should folks get excited for in the future.
So if anybody's watching this, follow me on Instagram. It's at Tattoo Baby. It's spelled TatuBaby. Check out my work. Through there, you will find all my business pages, which is Till the End Tattoos and now Till the End Tattoos Tampa. I have amazing artists that work with me. They're all talented as well. Um, I'm on YouTube, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Snapchat, I'm on Facebook, I'm on everything. Just Google Tattoo Baby and you'll find me.
And for that, we are out.
Yeah.